Welcome back. Many in the aged care sector have labelled the federal budget a failure after desperate calls for increased wages have gone unanswered. Peak Bodies say it leaves workers on the edge of poverty and could see more Australians neglected. Instead, the latest budget includes $49.5 million to subsidise 15,000 training places for those looking to enter the aged care workforce. Joining me live now is Senior Australians and Aged Care Services Shadow Minister Clare O'Neil. Clare, good to see you. First of all, do you know how many people are actually wanting to get into aged care at the moment?
Well, Laura, you opened talking about the disappointment of the budget, and you're absolutely right. This budget showed contempt for older Australians who use this system and for the hundreds of thousands of people that work in aged care today. Now, we actually need to grow the workforce in aged care by hundreds of thousands of more people in the decades ahead because we've got an ageing population in this country. And at the moment, you cannot find enough people to work in this sector because the people who work in aged care are some of the very worst paid people in the Australian economy. Your listeners will remember that we had a Royal Commission. We've had 21 reports before the Royal Commission that told us that if we want to fix the neglect in aged care, the way to do that is by investing in the aged care workforce. And we heard nothing from government about this. So the budget this week showed us something very clear about this government. They have no intention of fixing up the widespread mismanagement and neglect of older Australians in this sector. And Australians need to understand that if they vote for this government again, they're going to get 3 more years of disgraceful behaviour towards elderly people who deserve so much better from their government.
Why is this so slow? Now, I know you're not a member of the government. You're quite the opposite, actually. But I understand that this does take time and maybe the money didn't need to be in the budget. But it just seems like the sector cannot find the people to go into it.
Yeah, exactly. And Laura, you make that statement as though the government's got some plan to fix this problem. That's absolutely wrong. The government has been told time and time again that unless we look after the people who look after our elderly citizens, then we're not going to be able to provide proper aged care in Australia. And that is what is happening today. I cannot stress to you enough the extent to which this system is in crisis. We have got a situation today where 2/3 of aged care residents are malnourished. They are literally starving in the care of their own government. We have endemic problems with the management of wounds, with the management of incontinence. And we have trying to look after these people, some of the worst paid people in the country. Now, if you're a young person who's looking for a future career, we really have to ask ourselves why a young person would choose aged care today.
Yeah.
The pay is appalling. There's not a clear career structure and career path. And really importantly, Laura, we are not actually supporting these workers to be able to do the quality of care and the quality of job that they want to do. They are making heartbreaking choices every day about whether they will help someone who's fallen out of bed or whether they'll help someone who's crying out in pain. This is literally what's happening today. So we've got to fix the job of what it is to be an aged care worker, and then we'll start to see the care improvements that elderly people deserve.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of privately run, profitable aged care centres as well. On average, are they paying their workers more? Is the crisis in these centres?
The crisis is absolutely across the entire sector, Laura, and I think the government's been quite clever in how it's tried to sort of point the finger at providers and say, oh, you know, the money's being wasted and this sort of thing.
No.
In my experience in aged care, the vast majority of people are trying to do the right thing. They are not being supported by government to do this, and we need to go to the person who's responsible here. Scott Morrison cut billions out of aged care while he was Treasurer of this country. He cannot be surprised when years later we see the type of widespread neglect that's there. But can I just say, one of the big important things for Labor is that there is a lot of money going into this system, and one of the frustrations we have with government is that they've essentially privatised the system. They're giving money to the providers. We don't have clarity as Australians about where that money's going. So
well,
what Labor wants to see...
$17.7 billion in the last budget, wasn't it? Which is, you know, a lot of money. But do we know how much money has been paid out there? Is this what you're talking about when it comes to transparency?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the $17.7 billion, no one will be surprised that that was, a few clever budgeting tricks by government where they basically brought forward a bunch of announcements about spending they were going to have to do anyway. And that's why I'd challenge you to find a single person in this country who can see any improvement to aged care than where we were a year ago. The truth is that the system has deteriorated significantly.
Okay.
But I do believe that we need more transparency in that system. Australians are paying a lot. They're not getting quality care out the other end, and we need to understand why.
There was an emphasis on skills training, and that's important in this budget. But the way I see it, Claire, is that there's not just a skills shortage, there is a labour force shortage in this area. It is not competitive with the NDIS. So what are you going to do there? I mean, we spoke to Mike Baird. This is just so frustrating, to be honest, because the unions are saying get people in and they want to get Aussies into jobs. We all want that. But don't we need to do a massive recruitment drive overseas?
Yeah, so I think we need to do a massive recruitment drive. My preference is to find Australians first for these roles. And even though we've got a low unemployment rate in Australia, there's still 1.5 million Australians who are either not in work or who are not working as much as they would like to.
Right. So how do you get those people in, and how long do you give it? I mean, if you're in government, so you go, OK, we want these Aussies in jobs. Do you try as hard as you can for 3 or 4 months, and then if you can't get those people, you spend money and try and get people overseas?
Yeah. So, Laura, the first thing we've got to do is fix the job of being an aged care worker, because even the government's training places, a lot of people that get the training in care that would enable them to work in either disability or aged care are going straight into disability, because you will earn $6, $7 an hour more as a disability worker. And, the people working in disability are not exactly on top dollar here. So we're talking about aged care workers getting paid, between $21 and $22 an hour for doing some of the most difficult and important work in the community. And that's just wrong. So Labor has said that we want to address that. We want to see aged care workers paid the respect that they deserve. And I think if we do that, and if they've got a government in place that's actually said, you know what, we're going to have a go at fixing this thing, then we are going to see people come into the sector. Because when I talk to aged care workers, Laura, there are the most amazing people in this country working in this sector. And what they say to me is, we love our job. We just want to be able to do it properly, and we want to be able to be paid a living wage for that work that we're doing. And so these are the things that need to be resolved. I believe the labour is there, but we've got to fix that job first.
Was there that bonus payment? I remember the Prime Minister announcing that at the press club. Has that helped?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it is absolutely a slap in the face for aged care workers. I mean, they're being paid $21 to $22 an hour, and the government thinks that it's going to somehow solve this problem by giving them a one-off bonus. And it's quite like what's happened.
Been paid?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, Laura. The government told us that this bonus would be paid, that first instalment would be paid by now. Our evidence from talking with the worker representatives and with workers themselves is that most have actually not received the bonus payment yet. So we're asking some questions of government at the moment about what on earth is going on here. But Laura, it's the same old story again and again. You get good front pages and the government says it's going to do this or that. And in the end, the implementation's just never there. And this is affecting the work of aged care workers. They're not even getting that paltry bonus payment that they were promised. What they really need is a proper pay rise for their work to be properly respected. That is the only pathway for us to get quality care for elder Australians in this country.
Wow. Well, it should be on the front page every day. Claire, I wish I had 20 more minutes, but I don't. We'll speak soon, though.
Great. Thanks, Laura.